Welcome back to Tiny T Gaming. Today I'm going to be talking about what if Guilliman betrayed the Emperor. I'm going to be doing this in the setting that the Horus Heresy has occurred. Guilliman fought on the side of the loyalists, but then in the aftermath of the Scouring, once the Imperium has effectively been cleansed, he then decides to break away from the Imperium. I'm not going to be talking about Guilliman fall into chaos, as I think this is simply a non-starter. He would never fall, though he would absolutely seek the preservation of Ultramar over the preservation of Terra, if he had to choose. To caveat what I'm going to say, Guilliman would not announce Imperium Secundus or an Ultramarine Imperium in the current setting, unless there was little hope of his father's empire surviving. If the Emperor died, there would also be a lack of the Astronomicon, which all of the Imperium benefits from through sailing through the warp. So I'm going to be talking about if he grew disillusioned with the Imperium and sought to break off completely after the Scouring and not the present day setting. So, at the end of the Heresy, and even at the end of the Great Scouring, Guilliman has the largest of the legions, and only the Dark Angels can rival his strength. However, they would be depleted due to the Heresy and the Sundering of Caliban. With his legion preeminent, he could well have split Ultramar from the Imperium, with the Astartes to garrison his own smaller empire. He could enact large-scale recruitment drives, force recruiting and batch-making legionaries as a deterrent to the remaining loyalist legions and surviving brothers. There would be skirmishes, but I have no doubt the Imperium would be forced to simply let him go, at the initial point anyway, as they would not have the combined might to challenge him. I won't go into how this would affect the remainder of the Imperium like that, though I think it would effectively begin to shatter. A man of reason and science, Rabute Guilliman would seek to continue the era of enlightenment his father had begun, encouraging a society of reason, law and progression. He would have issues with the burgeoning imperial faith though, as it would undoubtedly spill over into Ultramar, and then people would see him deified as a demigod, being that he is the son of the God Emperor. There would be rebellions within his own domain as well, potentially from within his own legion and the Imperial army units that have seen the sacrifices of the Horus Heresy, and I think many could take the opinion that they have given a lot in fighting Horus, and it would become a waste if they then turn their backs on the Emperor and his people. To that end, he would have to play it that he was further in his father's dream, potentially enforcing his will with some levels of martial law, and if he had created a post-heresy batch of thousands of Astartes, he would most likely have to use further psycho and hypno-conditioning to ensure the loyalty of his newer warriors, effectively seeding out the older veterans who have served the Imperium through the Great Crusade and the Heresy. I believe even the Ultramarines Legion would need to be culled, as there would be plenty of hard-bitten veterans who would not wish to abandon the Imperium proper to its fate. Whether that would be simply letting them die in skirmishes or simply using them as the spear tip, blunting them against legitimate enemies, or in the more Isfan 3 atrocity style, killing them himself, is up for debate. I don't think he would willingly throw his own loyalist core of warriors away. I think he would simply let them die out one by one over time, as Guilliman is a politician and a strategist, and he would use them and their brothers for the best effect without wanting waste. I think that, with infighting aside, Guilliman would still win. He could still, if he had wanted to, establish his own Ultramarine empire at the end of the Scouring, founded on reason and science, and backed up by the large legion of Astartes left to the galaxy, many of these veterans of the Great Crusade and then the Horus Heresy. He would have to industrialise larger tracts of Ultramar though, turning the beautiful worlds of the 500 into large hive cities, industrial worlds, and conscript huge swathes of the population into the Legion and his Imperial army, as one Legion would then be doing the job of multiple legions, so he would need potentially 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 Astartes, where before he had approximately 200,000. Could he have done all this though? Absolutely. I feel he would have to retained most of his legion too, especially if he splits from the Imperium in a slow manner, withdrawing back to Ultramar, rendering aid to the Imperium less and less, so more political splitting than an outright civil war like Horus attempted. If he withdrew from Imperial politics though, it would allow for another to lead in his place. Vulcan, Jagatai and Korax would be better leaders than Russ, though it would absolutely have to be Dawn who would take the lead. Now Dawn is driven and indomitable, and I think he would absolutely be able to call out what Guilliman was doing, but he would understand as a strategist himself he would have to play the long game. But even with a diminished legion, Dawn would have men like Fafnir Ran and Sigismund on his side, and eventually, once they had built their strength, the true loyalists would eventually bring Guilliman and Ultramar to heel, providing the Imperium hadn't imploded before this, which, in my opinion, is the most likely, because the amount of GNT that was lost from the loyalists at the Siege of Terra meant that it would take so long for them to grow their numbers back to anything resembling a true legion strength formation. That final point, though, is the most contentious, because in many people's opinion, Guilliman is the reason the Imperium survived through the Scouring and rebuilt. So if he wasn't there to support the Imperium and lead it, would it have lasted into the 41st millennium? That's just been my thoughts on if Guilliman betrayed his father after the Scouring. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. Please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed the video. Your support really means a lot, and I'll see you in the next one.